She's very illuminating.
Yeah.
Hello, Tashi Dele.
Where's Geshe? I can't see him.
Tashi Dele.
Good morning, Geshe.
Hello, Geshe.
Hello.
Where is Geshe? I can't see him.
Where are you, Geshe?
Yeah, where are you, Geshe? I can't see Geshe.
If you keep shutting up, you might see him, because every time I says anything, he disappears.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah. Hello to everybody, and hope things are okay. And so we will start this gathering as we did, the last few hour sessions with the recitation of refuge, 2 lines, and the bodhicitta, 2 lines. And as I mentioned, the last Sunday and Sunday before, when we read, say those lines, it is useful and extremely helpful, really, to try to connect our mind while we say the lines. And in here, the first 2 lines is, as we all know, related to the refuge. And the other day, I mentioned, to enrich our understanding of the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. There are, for example, in the Uttara Tantra, Sublime Continuum, in there, there are many verses in the first chapter talk about qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dharma, and the qualities of the Sangha. And also in Jetsun Drakpa, the extensive Lamrim, gradual path to enlightenment, in the first volume, where the refuge is explained, there are also some explanation about the qualities of the 3 jewels, which I mentioned one of the previous hour, the class. And these, the understanding, and these understandings, should be cultivated bit by bit by bit. It is very difficult for us to have the understanding of all the qualities of the Buddha, and Dharma and Sangha all in once. It is difficult. But whenever you have time, and you try to explore those things, which is very, very useful. And detail and more depth and the clearer that we have the understanding of the qualities of the 3 jewels. And then our, going for refuge, to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha will be more powerful and, more profound. And also on the other side, another point is, the understanding of this, our unenlightened existence, although we have so many good qualities, no doubt, particularly at the mental level, good hearts and so on and so forth. But still, we are not free we are not free from, from the afflictions and the obscurations and those that we experience from time to time, such as the greed, anger, jealousy, and those other unhealthy mental states. And we know that we are not free from those, the afflictions. Because we are not free from those afflictions, and our actions of the body, speech, and mind are also, polluted or influenced by these afflictions. Therefore, they are not wholesome. Many of these are not wholesome actions. They are unwholesome actions, unhealthy actions. And reflecting that, clearer and more detailed, the understanding that we have, the nature of our own, this unenlightened existence, then gradually that understanding, extending to the other living beings, as a follower of the bodhisattva and the path. That understanding, the understanding of unenlightened nature, understanding of that all living beings are not free from dukkha and the origins of dukkha, not free from afflictions and the influence of afflictions. That understanding should, as a follower of the bodhisattva and the path, that understanding also need to extend to all living beings. And deeper and more detailed that we have, that understanding of this unenlightened nature, our going for refuge to the three jewels will be stronger and very, what you call stronger. So therefore, quite often in the classical Buddhist texts, these two understandings, the understandings of the qualities of the three jewels and the understanding of our own unenlightened situation, unenlightened condition or existence, and then also understanding of this unenlightened existence of all living beings. These two understandings are quite often, called, these two understandings are the main causes that we, take refuge in three jewels. So that is something we should explore further and further. As I mentioned the other day, the understanding of our unenlightened nature is clearly, detailedly explained in the many other books and in the Jetsun Drakpa, people who follow the Tsongkhapa's tradition, Jetsun Drakpa's those Lamrim, gradual teachings on the gradual path to enlightenment. In the first out of the three scopes, small scope and the middling scopes are very much focused on, that our unenlightened nature, understanding of our unenlightened nature. And that is really something important. So, try every now and then to remind ourselves, and this is unenlightened nature, unenlightened existence, not free. Although we may experience joy, happiness, fulfillment, all those things, but still we are not completely free from, the afflictions and their seeds. And that's really something important. Then going for refuge to the Buddha as our own, or as a teacher, as a mentor, or Buddhas those enlightened beings as our mentor or teacher will come quite spontaneous, quite natural, when we've got those two understandings from our heart. Not just intellectual understanding, but from heartfelt understanding. And also going for refuge, taking refuge in Dharma will come very spontaneously. Dharma, to actualize, to experience, such as the Noble Eightfold Paths, such as love, compassion, altruism, to experiencing these qualities will come quite spontaneous, so that's, and also same as taking refuge in Sangha. So that is really something important to explore, which I already mentioned the other day. Today I added a little bit on the second part, which is the importance of understanding of our enlightened nature. So with that, then have a strong, clear mind of taking refuge in rituals as a part of, the setting our motivation, intention to join the class. Then, of course, many of us follow the bodhisattva and the teachings, Vajrayana teachings, and to that, having the altruistic awakened mind, the mind which sincerely, genuinely cares, concerns well-beings of all living creatures. Again, training our mind, like for reading the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Bodhicharya Avatara, particularly in the 8th chapter from verse 90 on. A very powerful, the techniques are explained, how to really cultivate this altruistic awakened mind. So, that is something important here as a part of our training ourselves to have that mind. So, with that brief explanation, now we will say the refuge and the bodhicitta lines together 3 times. Sanje chöda soji chonam la chanju pado dane gyabzu che dage chen soji be sonamanji dola penje sanje tu para sho. Sanje chöda soji chonam la changju pado dane gyabsu che dage chen soji be sonam ki dola penje sanje tu para. Sanje chöda soji chonam changju pado dane gyabsu che dage chen soji be sonam ki dola penje sanje tu para sho. Oh, yeah. So now we will do a short meditation, meditation that part of, again, training ourselves, training our minds to have a calm, clear, and a focused mind. That you can And people, I'm sure many of you do this meditation to build this kind of quality of mind, calm, clear, and focused mind. So we'll do just about a 5-minute silent meditation. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. As I mentioned the other day, the people who have taken refuge and also, have practicing cultivation of bodhicitta, it is really helpful and useful to consolidate these two mental states, these two realizations within ourselves by reading, contemplating different, different topics. Eventually, almost all the different teachings, the topics that we have listened, we have read, can bring down to cultivation of these two minds. And, yes, it is useful. It is useful to enrich ourselves by, exploring more new, interpretation, explanation, and theories, and so on and so forth. But, eventually, we should have some, like these two mental states, the mind taking refuge and the bodhicitta, cultivation of bodhicitta, and make that your core, what you call the daily practice. Whatever topic, sophisticated philosophy, or that you read, but eventually try to bring down to your core, daily essay, to feel from our heart, to think from our heart, to come down to like taking refuge in three jewels and cultivating bodhicitta, which is very, very useful. I'm sure many of you do this. As I mentioned, the morning when we woke up, just simply to recall, the three jewels as my refuge. Whatever is whatever is in front of me today, but the three jewels are my refuge. And also, whatever is in front of me today, but my mind will, remain or soak with the bodhicitta, the altruistic mind. And with that kind of, familiarizing or habituating in that way is very, very useful to do. Okay, now so far now we are going to our text itself, the King of Aspiration prayer, Samantabhadra. So that is the text that we are reading, and we have finished, up to verse end of the verse 12, and today our reading will start from verse 13. So up to end of verse 12, these, the first 12 verses are, as we read through, really, capture the, the what you call the, group of practices which are very, what you call the, which we can do again in our daily basis, which are very useful, to some practices can do physically, verbally, mentally, and they all have very what you call the, close connection to enhance, the many positive virtues within ourselves, and to reduce, to eliminate some of those unhealthy attitudes and behaviors. And that's what this 7 practice is called, technically called accumulating the merits and purifying the negativities. And again, I want to remind to you, many of you already have that book. You don't need to buy separately. Again, Jetsun Drakpa's extensive lumbering in the first volume, from page 94 to 99. In the first volume, page 94 to 99, he very nicely explained these 7 practices with these verses that we have read last few Sundays. And if you like to know a little bit more detail and very reliable sources of explanation, you can read from that Jetsun Drakpa's extensive labyrinth first volume, page 94 to 99, where he mainly explains the 7 practice. So that is just briefly to recap. So today our reading, we will start according to the commentators, from verse 13, then the main body of the text, the main body of the King of Prayer starts from verse 13. And in this translation that the administrator provided to you, and also kindly put it some kind of the translator put it some heading, which is quite helpful. In the normal reading the King of Prayer doesn't have this heading, but this here they put it the heading, sometimes quite useful to remind ourselves, okay, this verse or these verses really, while I'm reading, I should be thinking this, and so on and so forth. Another useful to say here, for example, if we when I'm reading King of Prayer for the sake of someone who passed away, and then sometimes it is quite useful. Also, I talked to my teacher recently, and he strongly agreed with that. Sometimes quite useful to think that person, the prayer that you are making for the sake of that person is saying that prayer. Quite often here we will come across, I such as such, I say such as such prayer, I do such as such. So when you say that, sometimes if you are saying that prayer, King of Prayer, for the sake of a particular person, you can imagine, although actually you are saying the prayer, but imagine that person is saying that prayer. Whether that person is Buddhist or not, it doesn't matter, because the meaning of the subject of these verses are very, very universal, not very much particular Buddhist, So therefore, sometimes that's useful when you are saying the King of Prayer for the sake of a particular person, although you are saying it, but think that person, the person that you are praying for, he or she is saying that prayer. And then, sometimes it's quite useful to do that. Okay. Now then the actual aspiration, here that they put it, and the first outline, here says, aspiration for purity of attitude. And these outlines, as I mentioned the other days, seems almost all these Indian commentators like Nagarjuna, Dhammakirti, and other Indian masters also seems to follow the same outlines, have slightly different choice of words, otherwise similar outline. And also the commentary that I'm reading, this Tibetan master, he is also following the same outlines. So this one, under this first outline, there are, the 1, 2, 3, three sort of what you call the verses covered with this under the outline of aspiration for purity of attitude. So in other words, these verses really, when we are saying that, although have slightly different topics here and there, mainly to have a strong yearning or aspiration or yearning or desire that oneself to have a pure attitude, pure thought. That is what overall these three verse 13, 14, and 15, they are capturing that that sort of attitude, to oneself to have a pure thought. That's amazing, isn't it? It is not easy to have a very nice, pure, very, the pure in the sense, no self-centered, no attachment, no sort of competitions involved. Very not that easy. Not that easy to, have that kind of pure, and also, so that is what these, the first three verses. Now then the verse 13 itself, reading the verse 13 itself, there are two sort of things are happening. First two lines, first I'll read the verse 13 itself in Tibetan. Deve sanje namdo chokchui, jigden dana kamshuk chogyurji, kaya majun teta ramnyurwa, samzo changju rimba sanje jun. Now first two lines from this verse, first two lines are saying, those the fully enlightened beings who are already, already in front of me, who are already enlightened, those enlightened beings, saying, I make wherever they are, wherever they are, I make, the offering. I make offering. Deva sanje namdo chokchui. So it says, let offerings be made to Buddhas of the past, past and present, like all those enlightened beings. And this has a strong connection to the, the seven impress, that second seven impress out of the seven, the making offerings. Buddhas of the past. And all who know, who now dwell throughout the 10 directions of this universe. And this is again, once again, expanding, extending our mind. Not just one Buddha, not just, the 10 Buddhas, not just 1,000 Buddhas, that, Buddhas, who enlightened beings who are, abiding all over the universe, and I make offerings. And that is what here. Then the next two lines are saying, those beings, those bodhisattvas, those beings who are going to be enlightened beings, enlightened beings. May they process to become enlightened beings. May they, all the, what you call the aspirations and all the, the activities to become enlightened beings to be quickly and swiftly, achieved or accomplished. And that's what here, the last two lines, let all who are yet to come swiftly fulfill their wishes and attain the stages of enlightenment and the Buddhahood. So here they put it enlightenment and Buddha. It doesn't matter. It is saying that so this verse 13, we can have two things. The first two lines, our prayer, our aspiration is those already enlightened beings, wherever they are, I make offerings. And those who are going to be enlightened beings, and that includes ourselves too. We are also going to be in the future, sometime in the future, going to be enlightened, enlightened beings sometime in the future. So may they process to become enlightened beings. May they, wishes, the aspirations, and their activities to become enlightened beings, to be, what's called swiftly or quickly to happen. And that's what here, this verse 13 is. Now verse 14, first I'll read the Tibetan. Chokju kalishuna chinipa, teta gyachiyonso takjuchi, chamju shinwan chungshin gyalwata, sanje sege kato kanwa sho. So this verse is really the aspiration, or our sort of aspiration, our prayer is in the two levels. The first two lines in this verse, our aspiration is that those the what you call the worlds which have lots of pain, difficulties, the unhappiness, all those the worlds to be what you call the free from all those difficulties. In Buddhism, and also I think in the other ancient Indian spiritual traditions, they talk about in terms of the samsara, in terms of the cyclic existence, where living beings are, go into this circle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. They talk about two things. Nögi jigden. Nögi jigden, literally it means the container of where the living beings are contained. And the juji semjen, ju literally it means what is inside that container, and that refers to the living beings, sentient beings. So this verse 14, the first two lines are making prayers. All those what you call the miserable worlds, container itself to be purified. And then last two lines, those living beings who are within the samsara to be, become the what you call the completely free from suffering. As you can see, the verse itself, let as many worlds as there are in all 10 directions transformed into realms that are vast and utterly pure. And this is once again, in the process of ourselves, to become fully enlightenment in the bodhisattva and the teachings. There are Sanjeki Xinjiangwa, Semjen Mimba. So literally it means, the purifying the, the purifying the field or the land that oneself, to become a enlightened or the pure land. And normally that term is used. And it's Semjen Jangwa, purifying the living beings from their negativities. So there are these kind of trainings while you're in the bodhisattva path. There are certain stages you have to go through these kind of trainings. And this verse really captures that those first two lines are, praying that all those unpure land to become pure land. Pure in the sense, no misery, no pain, no difficulties, and so on and so forth. And last two lines, praying that all, those unenlightened beings to become, the enlightened beings. And here it says, very nicely put it in the last two lines, filled with the Buddhas who have sat before the mighty Bodhi tree. Around them, all their bodhisattva sons and the daughters. Just think about it like that. Just imagine like that. It's beautiful, isn't it? Thinking that all living beings, unenlightened beings, to sit under the Bodhi tree. This is, what the historical Buddha is enlightened under the Bodhi tree. All living beings, sit under the Bodhi trees, and to become enlightened beings. And not just themselves to become enlightened beings, they are surrounded by the bodhisattvas, sons and daughters of the bodhisattvas. Just, training our mind to have that kind of, the very beautiful to do that. Mm-hmm. So then the next verse 15, mm-hmm. Out of those three verses under that first outline, now this is last one. Mm-hmm. The last verse 15 overall is what you call the Pentadrupa, aspiration or prayer that to support living beings, in two ways. The first, to support living beings to eliminate, to dispel their difficulties, their challenges, their sufferings. And then the second, to benefit living beings is through giving or providing the joys, happiness to them. And that's what here, the verse 15. The first two, first I'll read the verse 15 itself in Tibetan. Chokju kali shungna chinipa teta tato neme degyurji towa kunji chugi tenamni tumba gyurji rewang dubarsho. So it is beautiful saying, that all the, let as many sentient beings as there are in all 10 directions live, live away and forever in happiness and healthy. So these two are slightly different. Order is different. Okay. Benefit. So I will read in the Tibetan one. The first line, Chokjo Kalishu, Chokjo Simje Kana Chiniba, wherever living beings in the 10 directions, all the directions, May they be completely free from sufferings or illness. Here, neme, nemeba, ne is lit in Tibetan is illness. De neme, nemeba, let me no no suffering, no illness. De jurji, dewa is happiness. And here that all so it is very nicely put, happiness and health. So next two lines, saying that Drowa, living beings or the sentient beings, all sentient beings, their virtues, purpose of their virtues, the activities of their virtues, their virtuous activities, to be completely accomplished. Tumba Jujin Rawang Dubasho. In the saying that all beings meet Dharma. So it is here in Tibetans, living beings, unenlightened living beings, we have many different desires. Our desires, many of our desires are just worldly things, worldly achievements, worldly attainments. And that's one, most of our desire or our, yearnings. Here, the yearning is specifically mentioned, particular yearning is mentioned. That is yearning for Dharma, yearning for Dharma, yearning for virtues, wholesomes. And these yearnings, Tumba Gyuji, the favorable conditions to be achieved, and the Rawang Dubasho, their wishes to be fulfilled. And that's what here nicely put it, that befits them best. And so may all their hopes for be fulfilled. And here hopes, here refers to mainly the virtues, wholesomes, the previous word line that we're talking about. So this verse 15, really again has two meanings, two prayers. The first prayer is to expel, to dispel, to free all those, illnesses, miserables. And the last two lines, that all living beings, all sentient beings, wherever they are, which universe, which planet they are, may all the sentient beings, to fulfill their virtues, wishes, wishes or virtues to be fulfilled. So that is the first three verses under the first outline. Then the next, from verse 16 to 19, then under this headline, aspiration, never to forget bodhicitta, never to forget bodhicitta. And this is, as we know, Samantabhadra's prayer. All these aspirations that we are going to see, they all are motivated. They all are part of, enhancing bodhicitta. And we should remember that. We should remember that. And that is really useful. So first I will read verse 16. Chanju choba thangne tak chujin, drowa kundu jewa tenjurji, serap kundu chibu jewa na, tato tani rabdu chumasho. So in here, this verse under this heading, not never forgetting bodhicitta. This verse 16, saying that Chanju Choba Tani Tak Jujing. This made saying here, as I practice the training of enlightenment, may I recall that I think it may come with something. May I always read. So I will read in Tibetan words. Chanju Choba Tani Tak Jujing. Chanju Choba. That means deeds of the bodhisattvas. Deeds of the bodhisattvas. Tak Jujing. And all the tak, that the plural, referring to the bodhisattva's deeds, that making plural. Dak judging, dak means I. So judging, that means to engage. In other words, I engage in the bodhisattva's deeds. Here they put it might be right, but I will use like that. Chanju choba tani tak jujing. Dowa kundu jewa chen jujing. And then the next line, here it say, may I recall all my previous births. And that's here in Tibetan, right? Remembering all our past lives is something part of training our minds. When we recall our past, all our past lives, that help us in many different ways. First of all, that will help us to understand so many samsaric lives that we have taken. Also, that will help us. So in the past we had so many connections to so many people. In this lifetime alone, we have so many connections, not just human beings, with the non-human beings. All our daily, what we use, eating, drinking, wearing, shelter, all medicine, these all are, related to millions of living beings, and that will help, if when we are able to recall that, then we will see we are, directly and indirectly, one time or another time, we are connected, related to the all living beings. And this is very, useful. Then also the next line 3, and in my successive lives, through birth and through rebirth, and these two. So last line here, saying that to become ordained. I mean, here again, to ordain, or without non-ordained, but to have what you call favorable life to practice Dhamma. So it says, may I always renounce the worldly life. A very useful prayer. So then the next verse 17. In this verse, first I'll read in Tibetan. Gyawa kungi jesu lobgyute, chanju choba yongso sokjejing, surim choba timen yong takpa, tado manyam gyume choba sho. So this verse mainly to while we are training in the bodhisattva and the path, may we able to keep the ethics in a pure ethics, and that is really complete the ethic. That's what really overall the meaning of this verse. In other words, saying I will practice, enhance my ethics, my ethical way of living, my ethical way of thinking, my ethical way of interacting with others to be enhanced through following the teachings of the victorious ones, through the following the teachings of the Buddha, or hear the footsteps, training in the footsteps of all the victorious Buddhas. That's what here very nicely put it. The second line, may I bring good actions of perfections. Good actions. Of course, all the virtues are good actions. Here in particularly good actions refers to, if you remember, at the beginning of this prayer, good action here particularly refers to bodhisattva's deeds, bodhisattva's activities, the good actions. May I bring good actions to perfections. At this stage, our good heart, our practicing generosity, our practicing ethics, tolerance, all those practices, although we may practice, but quite often, they are what you call not perfect. They are constantly polluted by self-centered mind, egoistic mind, and so on and so forth. And that here saying, the actions, good actions be perfection. And the next line 3, which is the main point in particular in here, saying, may moral conduct be, taintless and pure. Tsurim choba, time yongdakwa. Tsurim, ethics or morality. Choba, deeds, activities of the ethical activities, moral activities. And these moral activities should not be stained by particularly in this context, by the self-centered mind, by the egoistic mind. Tima meba, tima, literally it means stain or affliction, or particularly in here, self-centered mind. Meba means, unstained. Here, taintless, taintless, or free from affliction. All the time, my ethics, my moral conduct, ethical conduct, never be, what you call decline. Never be decline, never be what you call decline, or here lapsing, never lapsing, and always free from fault. So that is verse 17. Here, verse 17, the main meaning is by following the teachings or the footsteps of the enlightened beings, victorious, Buddhas, to train ourselves, particularly to train ourselves to enhance our ethics. Particularly here, the bodhisattva, when we are practicing bodhisattva in a path, one of the main ethical practice is Simjen Tunjik Tsudim. Simjen Tunjik, the ethical practice to work for the sake of living beings, to benefit, to work for the sake of living beings. Yeah, so that's one. Yeah, so that's verse 17. Now, verse 18. Verse 18 is, so I'll read first in Tibetan. Pai Pedang Lutam Nujinke, Drumbum Tamta Mi Ganamta, Roa Kunji Danam Chisamba, Tamjeketo Taki Chutendo. So this is verse 18. So this verse is simply, as you can read in English, it is talking about as a bodhisattva practitioner, to have all the skills and all the means. In this case, the means to communicate to the living beings who have so many different, different lives, and let alone in this planet, so many different languages that we speak. And so here, that is really mainly talking about, to communicate with others, to benefit teaching Dharma or whatever that we want to benefit to the living beings. If we have the language, if we have the understanding what they need, language or body language or whatever, we are able to benefit more efficiently. And that's what this verse 18 is in meaning of that. Now verse 19. So this verse 19, taming my mind. Here put it taming my mind. But some other commentaries, like the Nagarjuna's, in the Nagarjuna's commentary, Gyu Jamba. Gyu Jamba, I think meaning can be same, but Gyu Jamba means very gentle mind, very gentle mind. And here they put it taming my mind. That will be fine. In Tibetan, Teshin, it has many different meanings. And Nagarjuna's commentary, it says Gyu Jamba, very, very gentle attitude, very gentle mind, Gyu Jamba. And striving the paramita. That means paramita here refers to the six perfections. And with a gentle mind, with a calm mind, with a peaceful mind, then strive to practice the six perfections. 대신 바로 지나 랍전데 장주선에 남양 제만주 디바 강나 디바 귤바다 대다 말을 용서 장화쇼. So first two lines with the saying, with a calm, peaceful, gentle mind to strive or to train in six perfections, then never forget the mind to be enlightened, bodhicitta. We'll never forget bodhicitta. So that is first two lines. Then the next two lines, last two lines in that verse 19, so all the the obscurations, all the obstacles to enhance bodhicitta, causes to forgetting, to forget bodhicitta. May all those obscurations be purified, be free, be eliminated. And that is, very nice verse, which verse 19. So we'll read one verse 20, which is moving into the third outline, just verse 20. Aspiration to be free from defilement. Aspiration free. So this verse captures, that not ourselves, but all living beings be free from afflictions or the defilements or the obscurations. So I'll read in Tibetan verse. Ledang nyamong duki lenam dojin jikten dowa namsuyam chitarpema chume chagwashin nidanamba towa metachu. So first two lines, the main meaning, saying that all living beings, wherever they are, in which universe they are, that all living beings to be free from, the afflictions or defilements and actions motivated by those afflictions. Here they put it saying, may I be free from karma, the harmful emotions and work of negativities. So that is led. So in Tibetan, le, tang, nyumong, le refers to karma. In here, not any karma, and the negative karma or karma action motivated by afflictions. And so this is what. Then the last two lines give an analogies. Analogies, first line, the third line. Chidar pema chu me chakwashing. So the lotus, even though born and grow in the muddy water, but it come into very pure. When it's come above the muddy water, it becomes very pure, beautiful. What you call the flower. Same as the what you call the suns and moons. These stars. When stars this moving from one directions to another directions, or they without any obscurations, then the stars be obscured by any other things. So that is what here they're giving the two different analogies. It is talking about when you are working for the sake of living beings in samsara, although you are within the samsara, working with the samsaric living beings, as a bodhisattvas, and all as those enlightened beings. Although they are within the samsara, within the samsaric environment, but they are free from those samsaric forms, and that's what here this verse 20 is. So today we'll leave it in here, end of verse 20. And so these verses are really nice to read. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this reading, sometimes just imagine that is happening. Imagine that's what you're doing. For example, verse verse 13, you are making offerings to all the existent Buddhas, past and the present. And you are also, making strong prayer, strong wish, strong prayer that, the beings who are not enlightened yet, those bodhisattvas, those, and all their yearnings, wishes, aspirations to be fulfilled and to become enlightened beings. Very beautiful to do that. So that is here today's reading. And today we will have a question and answer remaining. Then we will conclude with the prayer, 21 Thara prayer and dedication. So we have a few questions here. And so the first question from Elena. Elena, first question. Where is Elena?
Hello, Geshe.
Okay, good. Can you read your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you please talk about the process of abandonment of the arrogant mind in relation to the five paths? When is a practitioner free from all levels of arrogant mind, and how does it decrease in relation to the meditation on emptiness?
Oh, so entire time will be spent answering to this question. Okay. Now, so now the arrogant mind in Tibetan, sometimes it is called, ideal, or that quite often arrogant mind and negative pride are in a similar situation, and usually the growth that what we normally have, the arrogant attitude, that kind of the levels of arrogance may relatively easily to be reduced. For example, when we start to see all living beings in the what's called the mind training, the 8 verses of mind training, the first line, first verse, and the 8 verses of mind training. When we train ourselves, be able to see that all living beings are as precious, as important as the wish-fulfilling gem, our arrogant mind will, immediately reduce. So, and your specific question, the arrogant mind in relation to the 5 parts, part of preparation, part of seeing, part of so I think the seed, what you call the arrogant, obvious arrogant mind, obvious or active arrogant mind will be stop in a very early stage. May stop at the part of accumulation, the mind itself, But the seed may finish at the part of seeing, arrogant mind. The seed of the arrogant mind may finish at the part of seeing, out of 5 parts that you are asking. When is the practitioner free from all levels of arrogant mind? And this is what arrogant mind can be, what you call the active or the obvious arrogant mind can be what you call the reduce or may eliminate in a quite early stage. But seed may remain until part of seeing. How does it decrease in relation to the meditation on emptiness? And that is what I've answered. When you experience part of seeing, which is the 3rd out of 5, your first understanding of direct realization of emptiness will eliminate the seed, not just the arrogant mind itself, but even the seed of the arrogant mind. In this case, Mayao in Tibetan, arrogant in that sense. Okay, now the second question is Sam.
Geshe.
Oh yeah, Sam.
So, Geshe, you mentioned when we do prostrations and we do the prostration mudra here, you mentioned that this creates the cause for having the Ushnisha when we become Buddhas in the future. So my question initially was, why do we need to create the cause for that in order to benefit others? What's the Ushnisha for? But more broadly, my question's about why a Buddha needs to have particular physical attributes in addition to. It's much easier to see why a Buddha needs a particular kind of speech, mind, and activities, but the physical attributes are harder for me to understand.
Yes, that's true. Now, it is. Yes. When we make prostrations, put your hands in our crown. It is to symbolize or to create the causes to have Ushnisha. I think the having Ushnisha is not something it is part of your good qualities, then bring these attributes. It is not you deliberately make what you call the create the causes to have Ushanisha, or to have these Buddha's physical features. Having internal mental qualities, then you have externally you have these features. So, for example, the people who keep say doing lots of yoga, lots of exercises, what they have a healthy body. Similar to that, Buddhas for eons practicing these, such as these 6 perfections and so on and so forth. When these qualities are enhanced, then externally they have these features. It is not practices are done to have just the external features, Ushanisha or the other things. And that's one thing. I think that one of the qualities, the significance or the having Ushanisha is, to really what you call the joyous effort. Joyous effort is enhanced. When the joyous effort is enhanced, it has that kind of features. For example, having particular body color is that represents the purity of the ethics, like that. And you are right, it is some of these 32 measure marks and 80 manner marks are sometimes difficult to understand. And in fact, these are explained quite relatively detailed in the Maitriya's Ornament of Clear Realization in the 8th chapter. And some of the commentaries are even more detailed. And okay, that is my answer.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you.
Okay. Now the next is Carrie. Carrie Priest.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't see him here, and I haven't seen him on the list today. So we did email him, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's all right then. Okay. Okay. Then the next we have a long one. That's Ruth.
Ruth is here for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ruth, can you hear me?
Sorry, I forgot.
Okay.
I stayed mute. I stayed mute, which might have been better. But I wondered if you could fill us in with a bit of background about Tara, and especially the praises to 21 Taras. Because I actually find the meaning of this, despite the fact actually I love reading it with you, it remains rather impenetrable. And I thought it might help us all to know more about how her Indian tantric background might illuminate how we should view her. I mean, why does she have 21 forms? What are the more particularly, what are the resonances behind the words of her mantra, which come up in her praises? And then I think I'll skip the blah, blah that I wrote, but I think it's sort of underlyingly about joyous perseverance for us all. But I want to just let me say, do we need to know more about tantric use of negative emotions in order really to understand why her prayer is about action, which I think you mentioned, that Tara is not just for good wishes for everybody, but actually to trigger us into action of some sort.
Yes, yes. So I think that sometimes it is even in Tibetan, it's not easy to understand those verses to pray. Prayers to 21 Taras, those, they're sometimes not that easy to understand the full meaning. Maybe, there are some commentaries, nice commentaries, line by line. Maybe sometime in the future we may, deep on that or try to do that and to talk about the verses I did once while I was in Damyang, verse by verse, and looking at all the different images of 21 para, and maybe we can do once again sometime in the future. And now here the Tara, as in Tibetan is called Tilegilha, the deity of activities. In other words, this image, the female image of many different aspects, many different colors, many different forms. Not just 21. There are many different forms of the image of Tara. These are not individual living beings. These are really mainly the manifestations of Buddha's activities. And here, as you are saying, what is the what you call the Vajrayana? I think the Vajrayana, according to the Vajrayana, the negativities to be abandoned. And here, that is what in the Vajrayana, one of the main negativities to be purified. That is the sense of ordinariness, Tamelti Nangshin, or sense or the appearance and the grasping of ordinariness. Ordinariness in the sense of what normal samsaric things. That grasping and appearance of that kind of unpure things and events is one of the main obstacles in the Tantra to be purified. Okay, I think we'll leave it here. Okay, then the next is Pigpan. Is there? Yeah. From Malaysia. Pigpan Gar.
Yes. Thank you, Geshe. I was reading.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Geshe,
yeah.
I was reading your book, Ultimate and Relative Truth, and in the chapter on Saltantrika, it said that the source of that may be a King of Prayer Sutra. I just wonder whether they are the same.
Oh, okay. No. These two are different. This in the which are mentioned in the second book, in the FPT second book, King of Prayer Sutra. This is not translated in Tibetan. It is not in the Tibetan canon. It is separate, which the names are mentioned, but I haven't seen the sutra itself. It is different. Okay, thank you. So the last question, Dr. Sandeep from Bombay.
Yes, Geshe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Geshe, my question is about the tenet systems. The selflessness of the person is realized before the selflessness of the phenomena. As per the evolution from the lower tenet system to the higher tenet systems.
Yes.
But in my own experience, the selflessness of person seems to be more difficult to realize. The identity of the self. I seem to understand the selflessness of phenomena more easily because they are impermanent. But my personal identity, I find it more difficult.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I think that is very good question. Very good question. It is mentioned several times, many times by some of those experienced practitioners. They said understanding of selflessness of the person come first what you said is from your experience is reverse. What these masters have said, because as soon as when you talk about liberation or enlightenment of all living beings, your main concern here is the person, not the things, not his or her body, feeling, and so on and so forth. So your first focus will go to the person or the individual, not your body, not this, whether these are absence of self or not. That is the not immediate focus. Your immediate focus is really to go to the individual or the I or the self. Whether self, I, really attain enlightenment or not, really free from going to be free from samsara or not. That question will come first to the people who seek the liberation, rather than those people who talk about whether the external things are absence of self or not. And that's what these great masters have said. But my answer here is, I don't think it is very much fixed in that order. I think the order may change, the individuals, according to the individual's background, according to the individual's mental dispositions. I don't think it's completely fixed, saying first we will realize selflessness of the person, then we will realize selflessness of the phenomena. Although that theory is mentioned, as I just said, by the several great masters, but it can be, cannot be completely fixed to everybody. It can be different or reverse order. Okay, so that's my answer. Okay, thank you. We are really running out our time. So dedications. We will say the praises to 21 taras, and then those 3 verses. Om Jetsun Drakpa Shedrup Chanze Droma Nyuma Pa Mo Jene Keje Lota Drama Chigden Sungun Chigi Chegi Kesa Chewa Lene Jom Chanze Dongge Dawa Gundo Kanwa Jene Zigbe Shem Kama Tongda Tsoba Namge Rabdo Chewe Rabaram Chanze Semu Chone Jeje Peme Chane Nambara Jem Jimba Zundu Kadu Shewa Soba Samde Junye Chanze Tejin Shebe Tuto Taye Nambara Jawa Jem Malu Paru Jimba Tobe Jawe Segi Shindu Tem Chanze Tuda Rahung Yege Duda Chota Namka Kam Jiden Dobo Shabdi Nende Luba Meba Guba Nuyam Chanze Gyajin Mela Tsamba Nungla Naso Wanchu Chum Chombo Rola Tisa Namanda Nujun Soji Dune Dem Chanze Deje Chadang Peke Paro Chogo Rabdo Jom Ego Yunjan Shabdi Nende Mavara Choba Shindo Para Chanze Dure Jigba Chenbo Duyi Po Nambara Chom Chuji Shene Chonye Dente Tao Tamje Malu Se Chanze Kunjo Somze Cha De Seme Toga Nambara Jam Malu Choji Kolo Dembe Rangi Weji Sonama Chu Chanze Rabdo Gawa Jebe Ujin Weji Chengwa Bam Shiba Rabshi Dudara Dudan Jikten Wando Zam Chanze Saji Kyongwe So Nama Tamje Kuba Numa Nyem Chonye Yewa Yige Honge Pongba Tamje Nambara Chom Chanze Dawe Dombo Ujen Jemba Tamje Shindo Param Rebe Chene Weba Mele Tabar Shindo Rabzem Chanze Kebe Tama Me Param Barwe Chengwe Unenem Yejan Yungum Gune Koroke dai pone nambara chong chanze saji ngola cha ke teje nu chen shabje tong chonyi jenze yige hong ke remba tumbo namne ge chanze tema ge ma she ma nyange dejen ju nye sowa onda yanda tenbe dikwa chenpo jomba nye chanze kune koro dikwa chenpo jomba nye chanze kune koro wakawe dai lune nambara kem yige juwe ngane kwepe dikwa hongle choma nye chanze dure shamne dape honge nabe sabe nye Era meta radan be chen jiken sumna yewa nyem chanze laye tsoye nam be rita ta chen chana nam tara niju peje ye ken duna malu pane sem chanze laye tsonama ye po lada miem chi tem kune kocha kawa chi che tsoda melama ngepa sem chanze nima dawa je pe chinye pola rwa sem hara niju tudara ye shindo chakwe rimne sem chanze tinyi sumnam kwe pe shive tudaya ba dem dedan rona niju so nama chomba ture rapcho nyem zawe nga je toba de dan chanze wane niju za dedications. Kewa de jiwo gen sanama yishe coco shin sanama yishe le chong we tamba kunyi tobara sho chanju semjo rinpo che ma je panama je juro che Jeba nyamba meba ya kong ne kong du bewa kare rawe korwe shingama de pendan dewa malu jongwe ne chenre sewa ne jazo yin shabe sede pato Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry, we stay longer than hour and a half. Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, hi to your little one.
Bye. Bye.